G'day, Urgold Addicts, AOS Coach here, and I am talking Fyreslayers. Don't get to talk much Fyreslayers content on this channel because I don't know a lot of Fyreslayers players. It seems like this enigma where the faction exists, but there's not a lot of players, and then of that subset, there's not a lot of players who stick with it long enough to do incredibly well. But here we are. I have Ritchie from Just Play. You might know him from the Just Playing podcast. That was your podcast, right? I'm going to ask you why it's not saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. But more importantly, you took the Fyreslayers to the AOS Worlds tournament, which was like literally a few weeks ago, and the tournament, England won. England won. So not only is Ritchie someone who loves his Fyreslayers, but he's actually got the knowledge. So I'm going to get digging deep. But Ritchie, hello, g'day, welcome.
Hi, hello.
Introduce us.
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. Hello, everyone who is interested in Fyreslayers. I hope you learn a lot from this today. And yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Apologies for not having a mohawk or a big red beard, but I do have the Urgold tattoos kind of ingrained here. It's just that's why I'm wearing the jacket. It's a little bit sore at the moment. But man, what a cool book. Like when I picked this up for the first time, I'm not a big Fyreslayer player. I looked at it. I thought that the old book was a bit samey. It was always like spam the board with bodies, spam the board on the bodies. But I picked this up and I thought, yes, they've kind of learnt. Nurgle's now diverse, and I was hoping Fyreslayers were diverse. But before we get into all of this, and I'm going to share Ritchie's list, and I'm going to kind of get into the good stuff on how this competitive master is thinking about the book, what got you into the faction?
Model range, and dwarfs in general, really. I think I've ultimately, really, most of the time I select by armies, by if I like the miniature range, I want to paint them, I want to do the hobby side of things. Fyreslayers is maybe my best painted army. I've got two that I chop and change between, but it's one I've spent the most time on, certainly. Where I didn't actually get to play it as much as I would have liked in maybe the last iteration of it because of that. So yeah, that's a big part of it. I love Gotrek, as a child. They were the books that I read from Games Workshop. I know they're not the Slayers of old, but I think they were one of Games Workshop's better, unique IP, the Slayers. Obviously, it's just like generic high fantasy, a lot of it, isn't it? But, I think that was one of the things they've done better. So, yeah, I've just always liked them. And it's hard, because they're all the same model, all those jokes. But I think they can look good once you've done them all well. And dwarfs are my favourite in Age of Sigmar, more because I hate elves, I think. And there is... humans aren't very well done. For good guy humans, anyway, are not well done in this game. I don't consider Stormcast the human faction, so, yeah.
This is the time that I will reveal that I was this close to doing a Fyreslayers army for my Armies on Parade. I normally every year plan a new army based around Armies on Parade. So forget new year, new army. It's always about Armies on Parade. Yeah, and I was this close to base it around. I thought, what could I do with Fyreslayers if I leaned into the Slayer lore? You got your dragon, you had dragon, you had demon, you had
giant,
troll slayer, giant. I'm like, how do I convert and kit bash? And I started getting deep into the lore. And I didn't pull the trigger because I wasn't confident just enough to put some pants onto the Fyreslayers. I thought I'm going to green stuff, but I thought
paint the stripes and all the blue and white stripes and all that. Yeah, it's cool. I love doing it. My army was based as a pitcher, very. They're all on fire. He's fighting a Magmadroth. He's flying through the air in the book, and that was the one that inspired me. But there's a balance for me when I do an army of. I need to get it finished right. I'm going to play. So there's always some shortcut somewhere, and mine was the flesh. And then Darren Latham painted one like mine, but my God, it was just like, oh, why is this so good? Like, maybe it was horrible. Yeah.
I
know, it was so good.
I tell you what, though, I love the lore. Like, I love the, when you go deep into like the battle with Voltrix and you look into the mercenary style. I think that mercenary is not quite in the game yet because you think of them as like order good guys. Actually, no, they just fight. They're really almost like a dogs of war for anyone who knows the old school fantasy. Like they're mercenaries, and I hope they lean into that a lot more.
I loved all the bit around Shadespire, how they were like hired to protect it, but like failed. Yeah, I think it was like Nagash took it in the end or something. And yeah, like there's a few bands of them who, really feel they let down their oats, not protecting it, and go back and that. It was cool. And yeah, it's got a nice bit of lore to them, like it's good.
Hello World asking, can we share some photos of your army? I don't have them preloaded here. I don't actually have them, but I know Ritchie, Twitter handle below. If I haven't already put it in there, go follow Ritchie. And I'm sure after this stream at some point in time, you can see his army. So we'll put that out on the internet.
No, yeah, sure. I actually unpinned it the other day to replace it with a "Hey, I'm the world champion" tweet, but it'll be buried a little bit now, but it is there.
Let's talk about the new book. So Fyreslayers had a book. Was it a first edition book, if I remember correctly? Was it a second edition book?
Oh, I think it come out with first. I touched before I really was into it, but yeah, I think it was first edition.
What have you noticed as the changes from going from the old book to the new book? Is it the same? Have you noticed there has been units that have gotten really good? They're the units that you've retired. Like, what have you noticed going between books?
Yeah, I think through the three, I've done a bit of the classic Games Workshop. There was a unit's good, another unit's better, and then another unit's better. There was definitely that trend. And the originals, it was Volkite. We filled the board with them, right? They were so cheap, and that was not very interesting. Then they moved to the Hearthguard Berserkers in the last edition, and they were just like super well done for the points. Like a big highlighted change is at one point you could spend 400 points to get 20 of them, and now they're like, I think they're like, are they 160? Am I losing my mind? I think it's like 640 for 20 now. So that was a big change, moving away from the Hearthguard Berserkers, losing the battalion that allowed them to fight twice.
That wasn't Lords of the Lodge. Yeah, Lords of the Lodge one. You had to fight twice as long as you stayed within 13. I think it was a battlesmith or whatever it was.
They were very, very points efficient, very good with the wounds, the 4-up after save, loads and loads of armor stacking, like the levels that we have now. With them, they were unkillable. And the points difference, 160 Harlequins confirming there. The difference is is massive in that, and they're not bad now. Obviously, I haven't took any, so I don't think they are the optimal choice. But that was a big change. You moved away from being a block of guys that could move up the board. You were very, very, very good, like in teams. At doing certain missions. Let's say tectonic interference. You could have 3 blocks of 20. They were like near unkillable, and you were just managing, buffs and radiuses and making sure you kept the right unit as resilient as possible, managing command points, striking first and then striking twice. They were not, I think most people would say they're not a very engaging army to play against. I think Games Workshop made it a little bit, they maybe tricked you that you could beat them at one point. When it was a block of 30, right? It was like unkillable, okay? Yeah. And then they make it a 20 and it's still basically unkillable and still kills you, but you feel like you're getting somewhere. I think it was a bit of false hope with them, but there was units that could take them off. So yeah, big difference in moving away from being a foot slogging army that you might deep strike some units, establish some board presence and stay there, to a more damage focused army, I would say now.
Yeah, I think, when I reflect on my games against Fyreslayers in the past, not counting the new book, it was more, it feels like a Nurgle game.
Yeah.
You were like, obviously, Nurgle was fast back then, but you were slow. Yes, you could kind of tunnel under the ground and pop up. You would basically just get on an objective and you just grind through. And you didn't do a lot of damage. I don't remember playing against Fyreslayers and really being worried about the damage output. It was always about just getting the bodies on the table, the ward saves, bouncing off wounds from heroes onto troops. It was just grind. And I hated playing Fyreslayers. It was just such an unengaging game.
Yeah.
I have had a chance to play one, maybe even 2 games now with the new book. And I really enjoyed it. You still have the grind, you still have the ability to get ward, you still have the ability to protect those Mitre heroes. But much like Nurgle, which kind of went from a fast army to a slow army, it feels to me that this book plays like a Slayer army should. You should be killing. You should be wanting to get into combat. You should be rewarded for these things. And the book feels like it does that.
Yeah, I think the damage was high before, and they could be fast, and you had to know when to break your bubble and burst out, and when to maybe just bring the hammer down and finish off and that. And mostly it was just like stacking saves and making sure things are resilient. Yeah. Really, that's certainly how I played it. Anyway, I'm very, very happy to sit there and do nothing. If I'm winning the game, I think that's how I made me living early on in Age of Sigmar, really playing armies like that, playing Sylvaneth 1-drop, filling the board, Horrors fill the board, Slayers fill the board, Gits fill the board, and I think for a long time it was a super valid tactic and maybe the best and easiest way to win in Age of Sigmar. So
yeah,
the game's better than that now, though.
And what's cool is that the points didn't go up enough that if you still like your Hearthguard, if you still like your Volkites, if you like that style, it can still be done. It still can be competitive. You got the new Flamekeeper that would reward you. I want to get your thoughts on the Flamekeeper because it feels weird. You get an ability based off dying. Was it you need 5 bodies to die, but that's 10 wounds because each model's worth 2 wounds. I feel like when I looked at that box and I thought IDK versus Fyreslayers, you got the raw end of the stick. But I'll get your thoughts on that soon. But sure. One of the things that I really enjoyed is the fact that now Magma Dragon's actually good. It's been such a long time. Like people used to take maybe 1 at best, but then you quickly found out for the points that you used to run, it's another unit of Volkite, another unit of X. Now, boy, oh boy, do they slap.
Yeah. Classic Games Workshop, right? We've done Volkites, we've done Hearthguard. There's only 1 unit left. It's the Magmadroth. It's going to get good. So, yeah, I love it. Like, I always played them. I definitely didn't play the optimal list, but I had 2. I liked that they moved, and they could get around the board and do things. And I didn't expect that to be any different now. I didn't start off playing just with them. I had a balanced list probably, but once I started, exploring the Magmadroths a bit more, seeing how they could go, it's the Rune Sword on Magmadroth is a very cost efficient unit of 320 points. In Lofnir, 18 wounds, great attack profile, battle line. Really, really, really good unit. Superstar standout unit of the book is absolutely the Magmadroth. It's the Rune Son on Magmadroth is the standout, which makes it all work, I think. But obviously, the Rune Father on Magmadroth can allow you to do some exciting combinations as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I saw the Lofnir and you could unlock them as battle line, you look at what you get: the 18 wounds. It can have a 5-up ward. The damage when it takes wounds, it splashbacks damage. Yeah. I thought this is a really good. And I played a game actually. I had to throw like 20 witch elves with double blades. It took me a long time to grind that thing down, and then it obviously did a whole bunch of splashback mortals. So very challenging. And I think one of the cool things as well, and we will talk about this in the discussion, is the access to the Urgold and having those tools to apply at times that you need. And I imagine that can be quite challenging for players. Like, when do I use my Urgold?
Yeah.
Do I burn my good stuff early? Do I hold it too late and then maybe lose my opportunity? And I will bring up the runes so we can discuss it properly and get your thinking behind it. But before I do that,
biggest part, like hardest decision for me turn 1 normally, depending on what I'm facing, is that. It's deciding which one to use, early on, and planning when I'm going to use the best one, whichever the best is in that matchup. So,
and I'll definitely get you thinking behind it, because I don't think there's an easy strategy, right? It's not like Deepkin, right, where it's like turn 1 you do this, turn 2 you do this. It's almost like you respond to your opponent, go, right, I'm going to play against shooting. they're going to try to do X, or they're going to come in from reserve. They're a fast army. I'm going to do Y. And you've got tools to pull out at the right time. And I'll get you considerations when we get to those. But
that would be my like overriding thing about the faction and how it plays is it's like I always compare it to like MMO or arena combat game or something on a computer where you're toggling your buffs, on and off throughout the game. You're managing your cooldowns between runes to do damage, runes to do ward saves, other things that can activate to do ward saves, heroic actions, finest hours. You've just got loads of little things to toggle, and you've got loads of good targets for them. And that's what I enjoy playing with the list the most. It's, is it a simple combat army? Yeah, it fights. I push some monsters around, it's nothing that hasn't happened before, but all that is what makes it interesting and allows you to get the edge, hopefully to win.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a simple army, but it's not. It's not Iron Jaw simple, where it's just like run forward, or Witch Elves, where it's like run forward and Marathi can only take 3 wounds. There is still some complexity, and my play style is very much almost like a counter style play, where I like to respond to my opponent and pull out cards and pull out things at the time. But then I'm also a massive person who loves monsters. I was pushing monsters in AOS 1, trying to make things work. And, as Nathan Thompson saying in the chat, 4 Magmadroths just looks like so much fun. Like really, just running around with a whole bunch of Magmadroths, having some body still. But I do wonder, though, with the next General's Handbook coming up and some of the monster incentives being removed, is 4 Magmadroths going to be too much? Because right now the incentives are high on monsters, but what happens if the battle plans are going to reward bodies on the objective? Is Magmadroths going to be enough, or do you have too many?
It'll be more, for me, this monster thing comes up a lot. A lot of people talk about make that, how much do they lose? For me, it's more about what they give to something else, because the monster thing, for me, so we still get monster factions.
You're talking about the points, right?
No, I'm talking about, I'm talking about, you're saying obviously in this general handbook now you're rewarded for having monsters because you can do battle tactics or whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about, I'm talking, correct, those incentives to have 3 monsters run, you get an extra VP for it.
I also have monsters that die and give points away. So for me, it all comes out in the wash that. I don't think that will change anything. It'll obviously be if they say infantry or heroes or whatever they decide to do it with get so good that you can't take monsters, because we still got monstrous actions.
Yes.
Losing hunters as well, that could help monsters more. Everything can be roared, everything can be stomped, so.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to get too much.
We're guessing, aren't we, Coach?
We're completely guessing. They talked about battle line as they said, battle line. Now in Lofnir, your Magmadroths are going to be battle line. So this is a null question. It's well, I'm still
exactly. Yeah, it's what do they give to them, isn't it? So
yeah,
but the thing is, they're still the best pointed unit in the book. So they'd have to give a lot of rewards to Hearthguard, maybe Volkites are good though as well.
Yeah, and I think overall, when I look at this book, it's hard for me to make a list because I look at this and there is some good options. There are some good Volkite, and the Volkite War Scroll got split out as well. So you can make a troop focused army. You can make the Magmadroth focused army. I think the question though is, what are the key support heroes that are going to play out? Because you have so many support heroes. Yeah. From the Flamekeeper to the Battlesmith to the Rune Master, Rune Son, Rune Father. There's just so many choices. And then you have these not heroes like your Doomseeker and your Grimwrath Berserker. There's just so many troops. It's how do I construct this list? And I guess we'll get to that in a minute. Sure. Is there any units that maybe you think are less playable now? And I don't want to say they're redundant, but things that you used to take in the old book that now you're maybe I shouldn't lean in as heavy.
The Orakath Garda are a standout for that. They took an unreal unnecessary hit. I thought it was surprising. Nerfed the shooting a lot, took away some of the rules for a unit that was not really seeing a lot of play. Maybe it was just in testing it comboed up to be too good, but Yeah, they're a standout. They're like a really down the priority to take now. You'd be surprised if somebody would commit to take them again.
Yeah. I think you just won't take as many of the bodies. I think that's the key. Like you used to, as you said, flood the board with blocks of 20, blocks of 30, with coherency changes, and the fact that you know, like you don't have as many attacks. You used to be able to wrap around and because you have, you know, I wouldn't say short range, but you would have a lot of wasted attacks. I think the incentives, I think you're more likely to go 10s and 5s and maybe one unit of 20, unless you're just going completely trying to double down on the troops.
Yeah. Which I think is valid. There's some lists that could do that.
What are they good at? If I was picking up this army for the first time and I'm like, right, what are the strengths here? Like, what am I tapping into? How would you describe it to me?
Oof. Gosh, what were their strengths? It's hard because they got some big, fast, really resilient monsters that have got really high damage output. That's their biggest strength. Is they're fast, super high damage output, which you can help with your little buffs. You can toggle on and off. You can sort of tailor them towards your target a little bit as well. And they're good against lots of different targets because of that. You know, you can go high range, you can go mass attacks, you can kill monsters with the right ones. So I think that's the strength in them there. That's it. That's their biggest strength. They've got more downfalls. They're not particularly slow anymore. They still got good deep striking options. They haven't got any shooting really that you can apply at range, but their Magmadroths shooting attack is very good for clearing troops down.
Which when Nighthawk come into play properly, Skaven comes into play. We're seeing Witch Elves now being flooded in the board. And if Gits get another book soon, you might see more of these opportunities to take advantage of these big units, because you're right. I think some of the abilities are not quite tapped into just yet because of this ultra elite hero monster focused meta we're in. But probably definitely one thing you're lacking is the long range shooting. Like you've got some short range, but it's chip damage at best.
Yeah, I think that's all. It's just little bits. But yeah, it's brilliant when you get a matchup and the guy's got bodies and you're like, oh, great. Like all of a sudden I've got 40 shots here, 2s, 3s, Ren 1 or Ren 3. It's like brilliant.
Yeah, it happened to me. It happened to me like 2 Droths went into my blocks of Witch Elves, and I've only got units of 20, but I'm like, this is a lot of dice.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the Flamekeeper?
Yeah, he's amazing. I probably played like 5 games before I played Magmadroths with a Griffear army. Greyfeared, is it? Yeah. And yeah, I think he's absolutely amazing. 90 points, incredible. Like they get powered up super easy. I've always got some Volkite hanging around myself, really. And once a couple of those die doing what they're meant to do, die in a screen slowly enough, that you've got it powered up. I think it's fantastic. You've got 2 really good abilities on there, and the counter charge in the enemy charge phase and the +1 damage on your Hearthguard Berserker units. If you go in that way, for me, I think they're a must. And you could take more than one, because 5 guys power 2 up. So
I was literally going to say that one mistake is people think it's like you can only affected by 1 ability, but no, you can take 2 Flamekeepers, and as long as those are dying within, is it the 12-inch radius or whatever it is, you could be double tapping into that, and there's some good abilities.
Yeah, great. Like honestly, and you just it's full, and then it's full like straight away afterwards. Honestly, like. That's so good. I really rate them. 90 points. I think they're a great unit.
Yeah, I would take 2. I think if I was going to take 1, I would take 2 and just make sure I doubled down on that. By the way, Hello World mentioning axes are the only shooting you need.
True. We got a rend. 1 point a rend on our heroes' axes now. It's all good. The only time I've struggled is if I've wanted to try and chase 1-drop and the hero side of things, or I'm chasing low drop and fit them in battalions, but I don't know if there's a really good 1-drop list anyway. So
Yeah, and there is
Magmadroths.
Yeah, correct. And I think for obviously people are going for the race to the bottom, and if you can't get 1 or 2 drops, it's almost like, why do I even bother? You're better off maybe going in for things like Hunters of the Heartland and protecting some of those troops to make sure, if you're running Volkites or whatever it might be, to make sure you can tap into the fierce counter attack, or being able to tap into some of the other abilities that are just too good. And let's see how we go with.
This is one of the most stacked books for command traits and artifacts that I've seen as well. Its artifacts are incredible. So, yeah, there's plenty of, like, I've seen a couple of questions about the Magmadroths and some rules. If I'll answer, if you don't mind. So, like,
Sure.
someone asked earlier about, can you take 6 as a list? So, yeah, when you take a rune son on a Magmadroth, it gets the battle line, which means it loses leader and loses behemoth. So yeah, they're just like battle line. Take 5 of them, which means, as leading on to another question, they can fit into the battle regiment. So you can take 5 in a battle regiment, and then you can take, whoever you want to be leader, generally a Rune Father or Magmadroth, and there you go, your 1 drop. Yeah, that fits in fine. You can I have mine in Hunters of the Heartland, so I've got 3 Rune Sons of Magmadroth and Hunters of the Heartland, and that is a nightmare for opponents. A nightmare, no roar in them, nothing. You can get beyond that save. Again, once you're toggling all these other bonuses you can get on them, when you want to make them resilient, it's really good. So yeah, there's just plenty of Magmadroth lists you can write. I'll probably talk about some bit later on, other ways I can evolve this list or different ways you could play it. But
we're about to get into lists, and I got a couple of rapid fire questions from the Discord as well. Like, people like Jonathan are like asking about Kronspine, and they're talking about, there's so many things you can possibly do with this faction, and there's a lot of questions, which is great. Let's get into the rules. I'm going to bring up the rules, and I want your perception and thoughts around it. So first off, you got 4 lodge options. It hasn't changed. You've always had 4 lodges, but you certainly, your abilities and what's within the lodge. The great thing, obviously, as well, is the fact that you are no longer locked into a command trait. You're no longer locked into an artifact like you used to. Yeah. So it's really freed you up. Where do you stand on the 4 sub-factions? Are all 4 of them viable? Is Lofnir just the best one because of the Magmadroths, sorry. Where are you at with the 4?
Okay, so I think Hermdar is the worst. I'm probably one that you would never see selected. And then I would say Vostarg is next to bottom. Weird way to say it, but but that's not that bad. Like, they've got an amazing. It's +1 to hit and +1 to wound when your Volkites charge, and that's good, And the unit of Volkites with axes, like 3 attacks each, can do a lot if you wanted to really go down that route of taking a lot of bodies. I think you would really have to lean into making sure you've got a lot of Volkite Berserkers. So I think that's okay. But the 2 standout ones are Greyfeard and Lofnir for me. And I think that they're the 2 that, depending how like maybe the meta changes or stuff like the next general's handbook might improve other things, or if they toggle any points around and they make any nerfs, any changes. I think these are the 2 that we'll be talking about the most for a long time. I think Lofnir, for me, is the standout right now. So if I was going to rate one, I would say that is the best. You've seen Magmadroths go from 14 wounds last edition to 16 on the War Scroll, and then get 2 more from Lofnir. The amount of times you have a conversation with a guy, and maybe you always say, like, do you want to know anything about my army? And they'll maybe ask you a few questions or say no or no, and then like they'll start shooting something or they'll be fighting. And you're like, and I'll get to like the 14 wound mark, and I'll turn the dice to 14 or something. They'll be like, how many wounds that got? And you're like, 18. And they're like, oh, it's not dead. I'm like, no, it's not dead yet. So it's 18 wounds. And like you said, they bleed them back. If you're fighting another combat army, 9 mortals back on average, 54 as an army. If you take 6 of them, it's a lot if you're fighting a fighting army back. So yeah, that's really good. And obviously they make them battle line.
Can I just rewind on Hemdar for a second? Because when you look at Hemdar, you get Battle Shock immunity if you are within enemy territory, which is trash.
Yeah.
But it's the other side that I want to ask you about, because you also get it if you're wholly within 12 inches of an objective, which isn't so bad.
Is it now? It's you lose half the models, right?
If a friendly Heimdall unit wholly within enemy territory or wholly within, if fails a battle shock, you halve the amount of models that flee.
Yeah, I just don't see that as being that good. Like I played against Dark Elves the other day, and they had something that made me immune to Inspiring Presence, and I was like, wow,
The
that
Crown
was
of
powerful.
Woe, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Great.
Whoa. So, you know, maybe there would be some legs in something like that, but I think because of, like I said earlier, how stacked the artifacts are, it'll be hard to not take Greyford if you're taking a foot army, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
the artifacts that are good.
and I'm like looking at Hearthguard Berserkers who have a bravery of 8, Volkites have a 7. So given that you're 2 wounds apiece, you can get a ward save and, you know, through like the Battlesmith or whatever it is. The attrition is not as fast, so you know, you'd have to lose a lot of models in order to make the most of that ability. But maybe by that stage, is it too much? So I can see why Heimdall is probably last, but I guess I wanted just to explore it with you for anyone who's like, wait a second, that sounds amazing. Maybe I don't want to lose a lot of 20 models.
Yeah. No, yes, you know, you've obviously highlighted a circumstance where that would be decent, and again, I just think it's going to be so hard to see past the other two. Either if you took a bunch of Volkites, or you're just going to take a load of these amazing artifacts. It was interesting. Like, Battle Shock immunity was too powerful. You're right. Like, it's been one of those topics in the game that it's never really made a difference, right? Either they've given out too much Battle Shock immunity, and playing against Heimdall, obviously it was terrible that they were Battle Shock immune next to objectives, but really we took it because of Strike First, right? You know, that was just a side effect. And like playing against that Crown of Woe, I was like, whoa, this is powerful. And especially when its range increases to 15 or something, right? I was like,
yeah, so like what I do, because that's my army, right? So I put it on a Cauldron of Blood, which has a pretty big cavalry base. Then if it kills a model, it kind of extends. And like Nighthaunt can make you spend 2 command points to do an action. And I mean, they're only a select amount of options. Like if I'm going to a tournament, I'm not building for these 1 or 2 news, unless obviously my meta is full of Daughters of Cain. But I think you might have actually just raised an interesting point, Ritchie, is if I was going to run an army full of Volkite Berserkers who have a bravery of 7, and that was my strategy, I'm going to run a couple of units of 20, then maybe that actually works really well. But in most other situations, it might be a bit redundant.
Yeah, maybe they push this no battle shock thing as a theme, and maybe troops are so good that you need to take loads of them, and it could, go down that way. But yeah.
Right now, it's probably not the best option.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, the points change often, the incentives change often, who knows? But anyway, you've got a couple of other things. You got your counter, you got your command ability, which allows you to essentially so at the start of the enemy combat phase, you can activate it on your Hearthguard Berserkers, your Volkites, your Auric Hearthguard, and when someone charges you, so they have to be not charged already. So if I was already stuck into combat and my opponent then charges in another unit, that doesn't count. But when the unit gets charged the first time, they can essentially strike first until the end of that phase. What are your thoughts on that one?
It's good ability, isn't it? It's good. It's a nice toned down version of something that become a bit of an identity with the Fyreslayers and fits around the lore. Another one of your commenters just mentioned the Heimdall law is great, and they were, amazing at this. It all fits their story massively. So it's good. And obviously if you got blocks of Hearthguard, I think it's good. A few differences here. You've got the changes to command abilities. You'd only be able to target it once in the phase, so it's going to eat into your +1 to hit. It's going to eat into your +1 to save. So there's, you're losing other options there with it. So that's always been, in my experience playing, when I was using Hearthguard Berserkers, I was using it. If I got charged, I was trying to strike a unit. When I've been playing with the Volkites, Green Volkites, I've used it occasionally, but often I've wanted that unit to have +1 save because its role was to try and survive. But sometimes they're both getting slammed into, and I'll use it on one to get some hits in first. I played a game against Orkman with Iron Jaws in Worlds. I think it was in the Ashes actually. And you come in and you come into my screens, and he didn't kill all my Volkites. I think I had like a couple left. Both units had a model or two survive, but I killed like 20 wounds of pigs. Because one had struck first, and then they fight when they die, so they fought again. And I had a little rune up that got a few bits, and like it was a brilliant trade for me, really. So it was great.
Plus, you've obviously got the Flamekeeper. So if your Flamekeeper's powered up, this might be a time to go boom, activate that. Plus, you've got this. The other part of this as well is the psychological damage. Mm-hmm. If I'm an opponent and I know that you can strike first when I charge you. Let's say my witch elves, right? They're fragile. They don't want to get hit. So I want to do as much damage as I can before you hit me back. And if you can strike me first, I may reconsider how that attack might happen. Or maybe I route them away from those types of troops and go into something else.
Yeah, you're right. Some units just can't take it.
Like my witch elves, I do not want to, like if I've got a buffed up Mind Razor, 3 attacks each because they've got double blades, my High Gladiatrix is giving them a +1 to wound, +1 to rend. I'm going in, I want to smash you in the face, but they can't take a punch. You'll delete a unit of witch elves if you get into a fight first because they've got like a 5-up save or a 6-up save. And like this is a great, like this psychologically, I would probably avoid them because I would not want them.
Yeah, so, and try fighting one of those, off to the flank, 10 battle line versus 10 battle line fights. And Volkites are useless in combat. I have the Sling Shield one, so they got like 1 attack, 3s, 4s, Rem 1. But, I'll strike first with them, all attack. Now they'll strike when they die. So they all fight again, and all of a sudden one of those little exchanges, can go my way quite a bit. I might have a good rune up. They might be Ren 2. They might be 2s to hit. So, yeah.
I will say I did get around this by charging in Sisters of Slaughter because they've got the 6-inch pile-in, and that's how I got around it. Right, but again, that's such a small little ability. But again, I wouldn't want to charge witch elves into that. Good command ability. Yeah. Your other one's the heroic action, and it's funny because I was talking to Ritchie before this, and my opponent that I played literally rolled nothing but 6s when it came to the Urgold. I probably should check his dice; they weren't cooked. But it allows you to basically, instead of you're taking inspire heroic recovery or whatever the other different heroic actions, you can you activate the rune, and it's treated as it's the enhanced effect.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you choose this over getting the extra CP, going for a heal, other different options? Finest hour?
Absolutely. It's very rare I take heal because I can fail it. Look, I'll take the CP one like early game normally because there's nothing to do. But no, with playing a list like mine with lots of Magmadroths, I would imagine nearly any Fyreslayer list, because you're probably going to have a decent amount of heroes that are good at doing stuff anyway. This gets used all the time. Core part of my tactics, core part of my plan, from the turn 1, 2, 3, where I'm going in the game. Between that and Finest Hour, it's deciding which of those to use, really. And it's crucial, Like I have so many good targets for this heroic action and so many good targets for Finest Hour that it's rare that I'm not using one of those two. Like turn 1 willpower to get an unbind off, or if someone's got like an absolutely like incredible spell that they don't like really cast very well, maybe I'll hold a willpower up, like say like Blow Ab's spell or something, cast quite low, he only gets +1, maybe I'll take a chance. But normally I'm using this. Big examples are I'm going to go on an aggressive turn and I've got the Ren rune up and I don't roll a 6. I want the rune further on Magmadroth to have a Ren 4 axe. I know I can make it happen. But I don't have like in my army anyway, I don't have +1 to wound buff. So sometimes I am like, I really want to use Finest Hour now. But again, it's what I said about tailoring the target you're against. A really obvious example is like playing Nighthaunt, who don't get affected by rend. So I want to hit better. I want to wound better. I want more attacks. I don't care about my rend, and this can do that. I can get an extra attack during the +1 to hit one, which is the best against Night Haunts. And I know that my Magmadroths have got 3 extra attacks. So amazing. Resilience ones, you use Fyreslayers to defend your guy quite a lot, right? So I'm never sure. I mean, you're like protecting your Fyreslayers. Oh, do I want to use it now? With this army, I'm like, I'll Fyreslayers that guy.
Yeah.
I'll use this heroic action on this guy. Just goes on and on. It's amazing.
Especially if you're running a lot of Rune Sons and Rune Fathers on Magmadroths. So you're going to constantly have great abilities to use Finest Hour, especially like on the defensive, right? It's a really good time to use it in your opponent's turn, as opposed to trying to go for the CP on a 4-up. The other interesting part, as Hello World's mentioned, is the fact that both of the abilities we just talked about, the heroic action and the counterattack, are both once per battle for the unit, right? So get yourself some tokens. Make sure, especially if you've got a lot of monster heroes, you're keeping a track of this. But I imagine this becomes a small challenge for you to manage in game to, again, not burn it too quickly.
Just interesting,
and think about
just more things to toggle, more things to think about, more things to plan ahead. It's cool. Like, I think it's great that it's once per game.
Yeah, better than nothing. Better than kicking the teeth.
Better than just permanently being up and there being no decisions to make, right? Like, it's interesting.
Yeah. What about the Grimwraths? They're one thing, and I call out the Grimwraths because I think the offering is attractive. Like, just on paper, when I look at Grimwraths and I look at those abilities, I think they're pretty hot. Like, as an ability, just pure ability. Do you like Grimwraths now that you've played around with it a little bit? Would you run a lot of them? Would you take one even as just a bodyguard to a Rune Father or a Rune Son on foot? Or do you think it's something that sounds good, but actually in theory your points go better somewhere else?
I think it's the points thing for me. Yeah, I think they look okay, right? Like, you could take lots of them. There's nice weapons you can put on them. You can make them fight lots of times. But when I look at, like, they got 4 attacks, 3s, round 1, 2 damage. That's just not that impressive, Sometimes you have to be boring, right, and do the maths and go, oh my gosh, this guy can roll like loads of dice and do this. And yes, I can apply all these runes to him, but where's the opportunity to do that? And yeah, mathematically, it's actually only X damage. It's just not. I don't know that impressive. And they're not competing for hero slots. You can take them in extra. You don't have that many single guys just running around the board, right? When you got Rune Fathers on foot, which are excellent, Flamekeeper, excellent as well. You definitely probably want some priests and things. I just don't see it. I did try and think of them as like a Beasts and Nurgle unit, when because Beasts and Nurgle were everywhere. We talk about spamming, MSU units and something that comes up a lot when there's opportunities for them. And, I guess it's possible, but
it's funny you mentioned Beasts of Nurgle because Hello World asking, what's the best oath for the Grimwraths if you were going to take them? And certainly one of them is, for me would be the run and charge. I think if I was going to take them, the run and charge is a really nice one that I really like. I like the, if I was taking a Rune Father or a Rune Son, I like the bodyguard as opposed to the Hearthguard because it just saves me some points. They're probably the ones that I like more. If you were going to take Grimmies, do you have ones that you'd prefer?
You got to have the run and charge, 100%. The guys are pretty slow. You want to get them around the board, get them in, also run them, combine them maybe with your movement rune, and you really got to get them back into the battle or in the battle in the first place. So, yeah, I think that one stands out. And, yeah, I guess go with my life. It's a good point, yeah. Good way, like you say, to protect one of your models for a cheap point. I think that's a valid tactic, that coach. I like that. These are 80 points, aren't they? So
yeah, they're not. I'll have a look. They're quite cheap. 85 points. Oh, so the Doomseeker is 85. The the Grimwrath Berserker is 105.
Maybe. Yeah, it's still cheaper.
Versus like 160 or 170 for the bodies.
Yeah, 160. Yeah, so it is a save in there to get something to protect an important hero. But then again, those heroes are really good, like a Rune Father, which is the best of those two. He's good behind a line of men hitting over. So you're probably still going to want lines of men to hide behind. So yeah, maybe not.
Something I didn't mention as well.
I didn't give that a thought. So that was pretty good.
I like you also can re-roll the run and charge rolls for the unit as well. So like that's pretty sexy. That means a CP up your sleeve. It means you can slingshot something. It allows you to just and run and charge. People. It's such a great ability. It's a really good ability.
Yeah.
The other stuff is the Urgold, and this is something that I really want to get into your head because this is a challenge for some people. When do I use my Urgold? What are the situations, at what times, or what are the considerations that you play the different runes? So for anyone who hasn't seen this yet, there are 6 different types of runes. You use them once per turn. So every battle round, in your hero phase, and basically you roll a dice. And on a roll of a 1 to a 5, you just get a standard ability. If you roll a 6, you get the enhanced ability. And as we've previously shown, there are some other ways to get yourself that guaranteed 6, like the heroic action. So when you look at the 6 options, are they all good? Are some of them situational? Do you have preferences? And again, conscious that you would apply different runes at different times, different opponents, different battle plans.
Okay, sure. They're not all good. There's 2 that are considerably. I think the Axe one is probably the one to highlight as maybe the worst. But again, I could see you got a Vostarg army, you've got a units of 30, 20, you got 100 Volkites, and you can make your whole army 3s to hit instead of 4s in some close range shooting. Maybe that could push things through.
That's the Axe of Fury.
That's the
Rune of Fury. Sorry,
Farsight.
Oh, Farsight. Yes, you get +1 to hit for again, the throwing axes.
Yeah, I think that's like fringe, like super fringe. So you as a good player, you're always making sure you got every option, in your head, haven't you? And that's why it's good to have like gaming aids to help you remember things and not miss something. But I think that's probably a lower down one. Then I would say the rest are good, and I use all the other ones are the 5 I would nearly use every game, and it is hard to know when to use them all. So if it started with Rune of Fury, +1 to hit for your whole army in melee, all Fyreslayer units in melee, like that is amazing. I roll in say my army at least, and I think any Fyreslayer army a lot of dice in combat. A Magmadroth, a Rune Magmadroth rolls 14 without any buffs going on, and they hit on 4s and 3s. So getting down to that 2s to hit, when I've got 4 of them, my entire army hitting on 2s. This is incredible. And the enhanced effect is army wide amazing. If you roll a 6, it's absolutely incredible. Your entire army getting an extra attack. Magmadroths have got 3 attack profiles. So, it's 17 attacks. All you guys, you've got lots of bodies in any other list that you might take. So again, it's a lot of attacks. But where you're really looking at this is with the heroic action. That's when you can plan for one of these advanced ones, and that's more as a player is what you're planning about. It's all starts at phase. So like before you do anything, you pick your rule and roll your dice, right? You decide, I've got a 6. Now I am going to do broken ranks because I'm definitely going to wipe out something this turn, or I'm going to go more aggressive because my whole army's got +1 attack. So you find all that information out first, but mostly what you're planning about is the heroic action. So knowing that I can give an extra attack to my Runefather or Magmadroth on 3 of his things is good. If I want to plan that out with the heroic action. So hey Max, and I also then love the Ren rune, which is probably the one that is talked about the most, and the hype one, and the one we're all going to tweet about, and oh my god, this situation. So your whole army getting +1 rend. You need Ren to get through stuff nowadays, don't you? Everyone's got like save stacking, or there's just the fact there's a +1 save in their combat phase. So that's really good. And again, you get it across your whole army. It's absolutely incredible. And I think those 2 are 2s that can like blow a game away. You can randomly roll a 6, and your opponent can be like, ugh, you just blew a game open. I'll just shove everything in and maybe we'll just put the game to bed there, and then if you're in a position to fight. So they're two really good. But again, it's about the heroic action on that one, knowing that I can make my a rune, let's say Rune Father or Magmadroth again, have 6 attacks that are rend 3/2 damage, 3 attacks that are rend 4d3 damage, and then his axe is 4 attacks, rend 4 damage. So those numbers are obviously incredible, and when you got that high rend, it really allows you to plan your turn well when you know your opponent's got no save, right? We've mentioned Nurgle before, haven't we, Coach? And like an army that can have a chance to make those saves and can roll those dice can just blow your plan out the water, can't it?
Yeah, and like I was just thinking about this, right? Like in the example of your list, you've got a lot of Magmadroths. That Blazing Maw goes to a Rend 3, and if you roll the enhanced effect or heroic action, that's Rend 4. So it doesn't matter how much Mystic Shield and Finest Hours and cover saves, you will eventually rip through them, which is going to be great. And again, knowing that with the heroic action, you can always get it at least once on one of your hero monsters, which is so good.
Yeah, and I've got raw in abundance across the table as well. So,
at the same time though, you've got Nighthaunt, right? So you don't pull that trigger. You've got other options, and at least still you've got options. Do you have any thoughts or any tips on? I imagine with Hello World mentioning, if you begin second, so it's battle round 1. I'm going second, so my opponent wants to go first. You don't have the ability to activate a rune until it becomes my hero phase. Has anyone ever alpha attacked you, either shooting or combat, in turn 1 where you haven't had a rune, or is this something that is not really a concern of yours?
Yeah, I would say it's a concern. It's a concern. Right, look, I've got screens, right? So you ain't alpha in my army, and my screens are real. They're 4+ save, 2 runes a model, dwarfs, like, and I, know the game well enough to make sure that I don't get taken advantage of when screening. So that's not being a concern. Could someone shoot me? Yes, this army's not good against shooting, and that maybe is an overwhelming weakness in the army against certain metas, but I like Coach asked me at the start, I love this army because I love the faction, love the dwarfs. I'm lucky enough to play loads of Age of Sigmar and own a lot of armies, so I can afford to, maybe play something that's not optimal in the meta, so that's fine. But like, if I don't get a rune up turn 1, when I was looking at stuff like Long Strikes or like I don't know, Bastildons and things, mathematically, yes, maybe I don't lose a model, but they're crippled. I'm not healing them up to full, they're dead, and then they'll just be an easy battle tactic next turn when they've got 3 wounds left. So I don't think it's that big a concern. And I'm 9 drop. If someone's going to go first against me, bold move. When I shove my Magmadroths in on a double turn, you ain't going to have much army left. So it's hard for people to allow that to be, a future possibility. So mostly I get given first turn.
Yeah, like a real example here might be like the long strikes with Stormcast long strikes with a holy command where they can shoot once per game, in the hero phase. So they try to do some massive damage, mortal wounds on 6s. They're 2 shots apiece. Cool, we get it. This is where you got to consider, where do I deploy? So if they're going to try to snipe one of my heroes, can I protect it in cover? Can I think about my deployment and making sure that it's outside of range? Because at least with the holy command, they're not going to be able to move in the hero phase, so you kind of avoid that at least, and
you got to make sure they're close so you can get them back at least, haven't you? Yeah,
correct. Like like one of the things that I tell people to do is, just because you can deploy on the line doesn't mean you should.
Yeah,
and if you find yourself in that position, maybe don't deploy on the line. The other consideration is, if you've got a lot of that in your local meta or something you're really concerned about, look for other options. Your Battlesmith, for example, is going to give you a ward bubble. So don't worry about things you can't control. Things that you can control are going to be just what we've talked about already.
So the movement one.
Yes,
the movement one's outstanding. The the movement one plays a huge part in. You talked about the mental side of the game with the strike first. It plays a huge part of that in deployment. I am selling you the fact that my army can be very fast. If you're not reading through it, I'm telling you, yeah, the movement 12, they can be 14. The tape measure out. We're measuring how far they can go. If I roll a 6, I've got +2 charge for my whole army, but I know that one of my Magmadroths can 100% have +2. So it plays a massive part in deployment and the opening of the game and where my opponent deploys because of that. Huge, they like low drop armies have, you say you want to make me go first, but if you can't particularly do anything to me, or if it makes no difference to me where I put my guys, or I can screen my guys effectively enough and still not impact my movement, I might put my guys on a line and be like, okay, you decide to go first. Do you want to give me first? And they're like, so yeah, I guess I should be giving you first, right? Because you can't do anything. But what if you do? What if you do shove all the Magmadroths into the middle of my army? And a lot of times people have had to go first. They haven't deployed well enough, or they've deployed really, really cagey, because they're scared of them, and it's not allowed. They've given me first, and I've had to play the negative turn, and they've not been able to do anything back, because they're so far back, and it's not really made a difference. So the movement room is amazing in that respect, and it's also good later where. You need to just get your units back around the board, get them in. The game's developed, everything's all over the shop, and your Magmadroths off in the corner because it's took an objective and now it needs to get back in the fight. So yeah, it's an amazing one. And again, knowing that I can give a unit +2 charge is good. And I think I would probably won maybe four games by turn 1 using the movement rune and saying, right, I'm going in. And it's really good. The highlighted time for that, I played Darren Watson in the final of the Hampshire GT, and I went for it like that, and it worked amazing for me. Unfortunately, I lost that game, but he wouldn't mind saying himself, I won a priority turn 2, 3, or 4. That game was put to bed by me because it just worked out really well. Being that aggressive style, was good. So.
Yeah, definitely. The game is one on movement. I know we talk a lot about combat. People love shooting. People love combat. But really, this game is based on movement. Getting the movement to be able to get into your opponent, getting a unit wholly within enemy territory to score a battle tactic. Those 2 inches could be the difference between a unit getting in or out, or having to spend a CP to get a run roll as opposed to just moving on the base and then getting a charge in. Yeah. There's so much good stuff in that.
Yeah, and it makes it like there's times you're like, obviously this is army's got like I'll run 3 monsters turn 1 tactic, right? Great. Like sometimes though, instead I've gone +2 move. I'm going to put 2 monsters in your territory to get the extra one. And I've just shoved them all up. I've still got the extra point, but I've not had to dawdle in a little circle, and not do anything. I've still moved up the board a lot, got myself in good positions. So yeah, it's good. And then the last 2, so. Searing Heat is one that I use a lot turn 1. It has an effect in combat, which is when you roll a 6 to wound, you do a mortal wound in addition. It works on shooting as well, which is quite nice at times. But you turn 1, you don't know if you're going to be in a fight, right? You talk about when to use which one, when are you going to use it, and there's certainly times let's say Nurgle flies, right? A big alpha army with 1 drop, we're going to move all my flies with the board, I'm going to charge it in 1. If someone does that to me, I'd really like to have a rune that can help me fight in combat, and I've got some amazing ones, but if they don't, then it's wasted, right? So this is one for me that I use turn 1 a lot. It allows me to
burn it.
Yeah, I just use it turn 1, burn it. If they do fight me, I've got some combat stuff going on, because it could be if they make me go turn 1 and then they double me, I could be in combat for 2 turns with no rune in the opening of the game, which, could be the entire game, right? They can be over that quick sometimes against some armies. So I like that one because if they don't come in, because I obviously I'm deterring that, right? I've got screens, I've got Magmadroths behind things, I'm stomping over screens, I'm reaching over screens. You know, I'm not an easy army to come on alpha. So, but if people do or do end up in scraps, then that one can be good for me. And that Orkman example, that was a rune that I had up because he made me go first, and that let my Volkites, you know, get all these mortals, extra mortal, you know, and it just made a difference really. So yeah, I like that one. You know, sometimes it'll come in later in the game when I'm running out, or most commonly it's my turn 1 play.
Do you think that might become more useful if Nighthaunt become more popular in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, if Nighthaunts are amazing, then Rune of Steele, the Ren one's useless, right? So I'm straight away Searing Heat is going to be a really good one for me, and I would absolutely want to save that for later. I want to save it for the shooting, right? When I'm putting, they're going to have a lot of models, right? When I'm putting 40 shots up from magmas, or I'm throwing all my axes in a foot army, you know, I might be throwing 60 axes at them in combat at some point. Then 6 immortals, you know, I think, yeah, it can definitely see a rise if a meta went that way. Absolutely.
Then and I think that's the key, right? That's the key, right?
Yeah.
Is that, you know, against most armies, some of these would be really good. More, you know, pluses to hit, pluses to rend, you know, pluses to move. But when I'm up against Nighthaunt and they're spamming a whole bunch of, I don't know, chain rasps or things like that, some of these things are just not going to cut the mustard. Plus one hits, whoop-de-doo. You're not going to be able to, you know, take out the Nighthaunt and then it's going to grow back. But getting some mortal wounds and, you know, as you said, throwing a whole bunch of axes on a better to hit or a better to wound, that's how you're going to clear through some of that stuff.
Yeah, you need every attack you can against them, aren't you? So it's good. The last one's the ward one. Yeah, well, this is good as well. So we talked a lot about toggling damage and tailing and the damage to your target. You've also are managing some defense. You know, there's a lot of wounds in whatever Fyreslayer on you take. You know, Magmadroths 18 each. I've took a ward saving my army by having a battlesmith, who once per game can be a 5+. So this is another rune that I'm deciding to manage when I'm using as well. So I've got I can blow up the shrine as well.
Oven, yeah,
the oven. Yeah, I can blow that up once per game for a 6+ ward. The battlesmith, you know, inevitably dies at some point. So this is good. You know, I can keep me ward save up across my army for the whole game. That's another challenge to me. You know, how am I going to make sure my army has always got a ward save? How am I going to make sure Magmadroths have got a ward save when they've broken off to do flanks and they've gone out of range of the battlesmith? So,
and that's the key there. It's easy to keep your battlesmith with a bubble around your troops, but when you've got a movement of 12, you potentially get +2 from the rune and you're kind of charging up the board. It's hard for the battlesmith to be keeping up with your drops. So being able to have a 6+ ward and then apply that heroic action to get it as a 5+ if you're unsuccessful. Brilliant.
Again, and it's an information to a turn coach, isn't it? Again, you know, I do this at the start. I roll a 6. I'm like, all right, all my Magmadroths are 5+ ward. I've got time. I can break them out. I can make moves around. You know, I know that, and it's another way to defend. Again, isn't it? You know, we've got Finest Hour as a way to defend, but we've also got a 5+ ward as a way to defend our stuff. So toggling all that on and off between those three is another part of the game that I find interesting planning. You know, I'll use this one turn 1 sometimes. You know, I will, and I might then, you know, a heroic action in their turn, give one of my guys a 5+ that they're going to shoot, ward against some shooting or something like that. I quite like it.
Yeah, no, I dig it. And I think that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. There is no set path. This is not Daughters of Cain or Deepkin, where it's like it's very progressive and it's very easy to predict. But I think that's also the benefit as well, is because as an opponent, it's easy for me to read the tea leaves to know what IDK want to do. I know with the Blood Rights table that, you know, turn 1, Daughter's going to do this. There's a few ways to tap into it. You respond to the meta and you respond to your opponent's actions, and that's an excitement that for me allows me to play cards to respond to my opponent and get the best out of the position on the table, as opposed to having a set plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, couple of rapid fire questions, both from the chat and the Discord, and then we're getting into the list. Are you ready? First one, Autumn asking, is it out of the question to bring 10 Hearthguard Berserkers in Deep Strike to deal with these types of armies? Can you still Deep Strike?
He means Auric Hearthguard, so they're the shooting one. Yeah, he can still Deep Strike. He can take the Rune Smite. He's 135 points now, so he's gone up a little bit. And yeah, he can Deep Strike any Fyreslayer unit, so you can Deep Strike Magmadroths as well. So, no, I'm afraid it's a no for me. Their shooting attack's not good enough anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. Second one came off from Ricky Me saying, our daughter's a Kane player at the Brotherhood teams, got caught out this weekend versus 6 Droths, forgetting the movement rune, and it cost him the game. Have you found that opportunity often with your list?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
No, we get to, yeah, absolutely, Ricky. Yeah, hey, they 100%. You know, like I said, if you call it, I'm selling that in deployments a lot, and it's more affecting me opponents, positioning generally. That's always had that impact, the movement rune. But no, yes, I have caught people out with getting into combat and doing it turn one, because your opponent is also going to be thinking about, well, if he comes in turn one, he hasn't got a fighting rune, right? That's a big trade-off for me. I go in turn one with those Magmadroths, and I haven't got any of my fighting runes up, right? And then it's their go. And then they win the turn roll, and it's their go again. And I've fought them for 3 turns with no damage bonuses. Like, it's not an easy play to make as a Fyreslayer player, but you see that you read the situation right, yeah, it can win you a game.
Yeah, no, good. And I think that the clap back, I guess as the game progresses and you've got your runes up and you lose a priority roll, cool, I've still got my rend 1, whatever it might be. But turn 1, if you have something that's not very combat-y and then you lose the priority going into turn 2, you're lacking the ward, you're lacking the combat, and you've got to hope to survive. So make sure you got to redeploy up your sleeve or something, because that is the time to strike against a Fyreslayer player.
And that is like when a book's early out and maybe it's not being discussed that much in depth, the tactics of it. It's certainly something that I think opponents haven't read about the army. They haven't seen that. Oh, actually, he's not got anything up, or actually, maybe I could play a negative turn here because he has got it up. It's not something I've found my opponents have considered enough. But I'm scared about, right? Like, what rune am I going to activate? I'm like, what if he decides not to do anything? and I haven't got it, so it's difficult.
Yeah, there's been times that I've, like, with some of my opponents, I try to bait them out. So like, I might have some bow snakes and I try to bait out the ward early. And I don't really care, because then I'll just save it for another opportunity, or I'll refocus, or you throw up the heroic action, like, yep, cool, I'm going to do a the 5-up ward. You're like, cool, okay, I'll now just refocus somewhere completely different. So yeah. There's definitely, as Nathan Thompson's saying, there is an art in the rune. There's absolutely an art.
The art of the rune.
All right. A couple of other rapid fire questions from Discord. Do you think Lofnir is best with 3 or 4 Magmadroths?
Minimum 4. Like, my list with 4 minimum. You've got 4 minimum. You can still fit plenty of other stuff that you need. So yeah, I think it's a 4. But 5 and 6, let's go. Like, no doubt. I think lots of people think I'm mad not just playing 6. So we'll get to that when we get to the lists.
It's a shame that the start collecting box has changed now to a Vanguard box, and the price of the price of the Magmadroth is now the same price as the start collecting box. It was funny. The minute that happened, I saw all like the buy and sells. People were like, oh, I want to buy a Magmadroth. I'm like,
yeah, do you now? Yeah. They've been on marketplace for the last 5 years for 20 quid, and you want them now, do you? Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Obviously I get them cost, but still it's painful.
Yeah, and like people are just like going everywhere on their local game store going, have you got to start collecting Magmadroths? And well, no, it is a start collecting for Magmadroths, but it's a start collecting Fyreslayers. Speaking of Lofnir, another question is, do you think Lofnir is best pushing Battle Regiment and getting a low drop, or something like Warlord and Hunters and not bothering with drops? So you obviously, you're a 9 drop. Do you have a thought on drops and pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a bit of a classic, conversation. Warlord, the book stack with artifacts, so Warlord's good. Hunters in Heartland on Magmadroths really good. You know, knowing you can +1 defense and you can't be roared is absolutely amazing. So it is really good. But it sucks to be given first turn with an army that can't do nothing, right? So I think if I was playing 6 Magmadroths, I'd be 1-drop.
I would, my personal preference would be Warlord and Hunters to tap into more of the artifacts, because there's nothing worse than being a 1-drop. You get matched up at a tournament with a 1-drop, then you lose the dice roll. So you built everything for nothing.
Yeah. I agree. It's
So it's like, obviously it's a risk and reward here, but for me, I would rather enhance and have a guarantee, and maybe that's another protection. Is like, well, I get myself a 6-up ward, I get an artifact to again boost some of my troops, or get something without a rune if I'm worried about that type meta.
Yeah.
A couple of other quick ones. Do you think a battlesmith should be in every list? I don't remember if one's yours.
Non-Magmadroth, yes. Yeah. He's been incredible for me. I played without him in my original list. I was like, I'm not paying 150 points for him. No. But if you've got men and you're rallying, if you just, I've got the points because you haven't gone full Magmadroth, yeah, he's a no-brainer.
Is Magmadroths worth running in Vostarg or Greyfeard?
Yeah, Greyfeard, I would say. Or Vostarg, yeah. I think they are. Yeah. It's only 2 wounds, right? They're absolutely worth taking.
Any matchups that you dread? Like any ones that you don't enjoy playing with your army?
Yeah, look, I don't want to be shot by. I just don't want to be shot. So I think Seraphon. They're, saying you're bad against the best army in the game, maybe right now, still is not an awful thing, right? I've only played them. I've played them 3 times, lost once, won twice. Could have won the third one, like with a priority roll, I think, as well. But they were so hard to win, even like in dominant positions. You're just getting through the last of them. The -1 damage is like super bad against my whole army, really. It's hard. So yeah, they're tough. And yeah, long strike dragons. Is
it all shooting? Like, is it cruel boy, big yellers? Is it bow snakes? Is it all forms of shooting, or is it a specific subset like mortal wound shooting? Or
no, I think it's. I've only got a 4-up save, right? And I've got all my targets a good target, so I can't like go, I'll all out defense and finest out with this guy, because they'll just shoot another one, right? So yeah, playing against like the Sentinels, I played against a red matchup at Worlds against Lumineth with like Techless and Sentinels and stuff. It's awful. The guy played really well. He knew he wasn't like chasing battle tactics. I'm going to do this guy and make sure I get +1. It's like, I'll just spam damage all over your own army, shoot efficiently, never waste a wound. And by the time it got to turn 3, Techless AoE'd once and killed like 4 Magmadroths or something, So it's hard. Daughters is hard. That shooting unit's tough, but I can also just like get the double and wipe them out. It's the same with dragons, and the dragons with long strikes I think's bad. Just dragons, yeah, it's okay, but it's just a priority roll. So, yeah, they're the tough ones, but there's a lot of honest fighting armies out there, so yeah, we're good to go.
2 more questions, then we'll get into your list. One is one from my Discord, and then I'll go to Nathan, who's in the chat.
Yeah.
The second last one I'll call out is, do you have any invocations you like to take? And when would you take them?
I've never ever put an invocation on a list. I think I can't remember the name. The wall's all right.
The wall, yeah.
The wall's all right. I'm point wise, and it could definitely unlock some like tactical options. The shooting one is okay.
Infernal.
The more
the flames, the
long range
spitter
one, yeah, but they're like 70 points, aren't they? I think they're definitely one of those type of units that you're writing lists, and at the end, maybe you're taking them because of points, right? But the +1 to wound bid taking a big triumph bid is really good as well. You know, I'm talking about toggling damage buffs and making sure I'm getting to those certain levels, and throwing another one into the mix. I think I'd probably rate that more. Maybe not at 70 points. That's like a huge bid. But, you know, I took 3 guild guard with my leftover points. And, you know, it's easy. Better than an invocation. And when you're casting that invocation now, you know, you've got really good runes. You got a +1 to damage rune. You've got a -1 to wound rune. I don't see it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, that's fair. And you know, even if you're taking like the firewall or the flame spitter, are you better off taking a triumph? And would a triumph be more useful to you during the game? That's the questions that you've got, right?
I think so.
Again,
Like, because I'm looking at going aggressive with a unit, and I'm like, am I using finest hour to have +1 to wound? Right. Commonly, I'll use it defensively instead because I've got the heroic action to give me some sort of fighting bonus. But I'd love to have the heroic action to have like +1 attack or +1 rend and have +1 to wound. So I'm 2 because, you know, again, can't be roared. So I'm 2s. I've got loads of rend. I've got loads of attack. Like, I think I'd love to have inspired.
Actually, I lied to you. I'm going to pull up another question. Jonathan asked a good question. Jonathan normally annoys me and asks me about Mega Gargants, and he knows the answer is always no, don't bring a Mega Gargant into as a mercenary. But he's asked a really good question here, and much love to Jonathan there, asking about Kronspine with a Magmadroth heavy list. Given that a Kronspine, you know, one of the big boosts is going to be the fact that it can give one, you can't retreat from around it, but 2, if you issue all out command, everyone within 12 inches will get all out attack. So it means all your Magmadroths could be getting +1 to hit, but it does mean that they wouldn't be able to receive any other commands. Is it too many points for 400? Are there other commands that they want to be receiving, or is it a good viable option?
Kronspite's a good unit, isn't it? I'm definitely I haven't Worlds like made us put quite a few things to the back of our mind, right? Nighthorn, Daughters, Kronspite, you know, and I haven't quite explored all that really. I've never played a game with it, never played against it. Read the War Scroll like only last week. It's good, isn't it? I think there's so a super annoying like Magmadroth list is you can take 5 Runesons on Magmadroth and Kronspite is 2,000 points, right? Except because he loses the leader trait, so he can't you can't have a leader. You're gonna have to lead your army. So
Yeah.
you know, it like catches you out. It's like, oh, he's battle line now, and now he's not a leader. So there's no other way to fit it otherwise. So you definitely end up with you'd end up with 4 and a Kronspite and then some stuff. So yeah, maybe.
I'm just thinking because I know when I have this conversation with other armies, they'll say to me, no, I don't want to do it because there's certain command abilities that I always want to activate in combat because it's obviously competing, right? You know, whether it's all out defense or whether it's some faction focused command. Like, you know, for example, in Daughters of Cain, there's an awesome one that gets me exploiting 6s. And I'd probably rather that than getting all out attack because my Blood Rights is already getting me +1 to hit through the game. But for you, and as I'm just looking through, like your Rune Father, your Rune Son, they don't seem to have a command ability that you'd be wanting to activate in the combat phase. So you've got no competing command, and actually
right.
getting +1 to hit board wide, you're basically now hitting on 2s for everyone, which is actually
good.
pretty intense.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's good. What do you think of Kronspite?
I love Kronspine, and it's funny because initially when I got Kronspine, I was freaking out about it going wild. When you kill the hero, it goes Hulkamania, it goes wild. But in an army like mine, which has low troops, and I'm being smart with where I deploy, it gets to run and charge, and it has the ability to it always receives all out attack, like it's always got the +1 to hit. So for 400 points, it's durable, it's a destruction card effects, and it means that your in your case, the Magmadroths would be advancing up the board while everyone's focusing on the Kronspine. So I've really enjoyed it as a Suns player and as a Gits player. I could see the benefit as what I do with my Suns with the Magmadroths.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, interesting to see how it pans out. I don't know. I'm feeling down on it generally. Yeah, I don't know
For
about
400
it. I don't know
points.
about it as an addition to the game right now, but yeah, that's another. I need to think about it more.
It's look at the moment. It's going to be powerful. You got to consider it. But the other question, and Nathan was the one I wanted to pull up, was the artifact, the 3-up ward. It's a once per battle ward. Nathan mentioning that he didn't play a game without the 3-up ward. Would you play without it? Do you think having a 3-up once per game is good, or?
Yeah, it's good. But there's certainly games where it has an added impact as well. I would say it was probably a little overall, maybe a little less impressive than I thought. Maybe like a difference. Maybe if I pick my opponent's brains after the games and see how it affected them. But at times, look, yeah, it's really allowed me to make a super obvious, this guy's going to push. He will not die. And that's that, right? I've got this guy's holding, he's blocking people up, his base is turned sideways, and it's engaging like a big chunk of a unit, so only a couple can fight another one. It's on a flank, and your opponent cannot just remove it easily. If he's going to do his battle tactic or want to take an objective off you, it's not killable very easy. But then there's games where it's like they've got damage in every phase, and you're like, this is not really like. As soon as I'm shooting, even it's hard. And then I'm using it in phases to make sure that, like I'll use it in a shooting phase when there's probably no way it doesn't even affect them. But I know that at least the damage is going to go to on it in the combat phase, so I'm going to get the mortal wound value out of it. You don't take the damage in the shooting phase, I get no mortal wound damage. Just if he dies in the combat phase afterwards, great. At least to do mortals back. So,
it's phase. I just reread it, and it's phase. So if you're up against again bow snakes who are going to shoot, although even then they're going to shoot in the hero phase, so you activate it once, but
you got to get that Magmadroth in such a strong position, like you really, really got to push it, or use it to protect the flank or something to make sure you get value. Because otherwise they'll just shoot something else. They'll just kill another one. You got 4, you got 6 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the start of the phase, so it's not even like when this thing is chosen. So it's like, cool, I've got a couple of things I want to shoot. You activate here, cool. I just route and just go shoot something else. So
it's best in combat when you engineer the situation you want, right? So
yeah, and you've got the guaranteed, and it means you can be more aggressive with the runes as well, which is awesome. But look, there's probably a lot of things we can talk about. I reckon that we could talk hours for this, but I probably want to talk to you a bit about your list and how you're putting this all together. And this is obviously to say, folks, this is not the only way to play the faction. If you love a certain thing, if you want to run all the Grimwraths in the world, you do you. But this is what you have run, and this was the list that you ran at Worlds. So you were Lofnir, you took Hold the Line. Curious why you didn't take any of your grand strategies from the book. You can explain that in a minute and what your thoughts on there. You've gone definitely a Magmadroth focused army. You've got your Rune Father with Magmadroth, General with the command trait of Blood of the Berserker, and the artifact Axe of Grimnir, and the mount trait of Coal Heart Ancient. You've got the Rune Master with Curse, and you've got a Battlesmith as well. You've got yourself 10 Volkites with shields, 2 Magmadroth Rune Suns, and obviously a combination with them. 3. You've got 3 of them, and a Free Guild General. That one caught me off guard. 85 points. Yeah, Free Guild Guard. What did I say?
General.
Oh. I'm a cities player. I see Free Guild and everything. Free Guild G, Free Guild Guard. So you've got and it's got sword and board. So 125 points, 9 drops. You've got 2,000 points on the nose. So there's no triumph. It doesn't matter. Wrapped up in Warlord and Hunters with the extra artifact coming from Warlord. So there's a lot of questions I've got here, from the free guild choice to the grand strategy choice to the combination of artifacts, and even going with curse as opposed to a prayer from the book. So what's this list do? How does it work? And what are the combinations and synergies that I should be thinking about?
So it's I think it's quite a balanced army, as Age of Sigmar armies go. We've got a mix of monsters, heroes, we've got foot troops, we've got screens. It's a very it's a comfortable army to play as a player. I mentioned earlier I probably made me live and playing lots of troops on board and stuff like that, and I like to have men on the board. I like to have some troops. I like ways to progress a game without committing my real units. I like to not be so vulnerable to the double turn that it matters. I think that's the biggest part of playing like a big horde list or something where you establish it, where if you can play an army where when you roll that priority roll, it makes no difference to you. Like you're just in a dream spot, right? When you're begging for that priority roll all the time, that's really tough. And this army's not like 100 dryads or like 160 gits where it literally doesn't matter the roll really. It's less vulnerable to that because I've got screens, because I've got men, because I can protect my core units against charges and stuff. So, yeah, for me, comparing this to 6 Magmadroths, I think like if you want to compare it against something else, that list is starting to do the rounds a little bit now. And yeah, for me, I just feel a lot more comfortable having some men on the board, having screens, not having an army that is so obvious. If someone wants to alpha your Magmadroths, you mentioned about not having runes up on that earlier. Well, they just can, right? Like they've got nothing they can do about it. You're just going to start losing Magmadroths. But is it better to just have 2 more Magmadroths? Maybe. So, but I've got everything in this.
And it's interesting because it's the same way that I've built my Dragon Stormcast list. I didn't go, 11 dragons or whatever it works out to be. I've still got some Vindictors. I've still got some small troops and some heroes, but I've still tapped into some of the greatness that is dragons. And I like that because you're right. Pros and cons. If you want to run 6 Magmadroths, you do no problem. Jonathan asking about the combination of, the axe over the javelin. There's lots of different ways you can customize. And one thing probably I do want to ask about as well is the Rune Smiter.
Sure.
Given that that hero is absent.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'll answer all that. I think that the thing that I sometimes I think about this list. I think is like a negative to me as a player. That am I playing with like a safety net of things that I'm used to? Am I not bold enough to be playing all of them? So I think that was something I thought about a lot in Worlds, after Worlds, and the build up into taking this list. That I wondered if I was just being a bit safe, having some men on the board for no reason. It's just like safe. I can't get charged turn 1. I'm scared of losing the game, and not being aggressive enough and just taking the game. So they are like some of the downside things. Some of the units that were asked about. I think the axe is better than the javelin. For me, 100%. It's got better stats, loads of attacks. Yes, I can randomly have a shooting attack. Not randomly, but yes, I can have a shooting attack that might do some damage. And yes, it might do, a little bit more. But no, for me, I look at it, it's like 11 attacks, 3s, round 1-2 damage when you combine the mount and the javelin together. I just see it like that. The mount and the axe together. Yeah, great for me. I 100% on the axe. The Rune Smiter or Magmadroth, I think he's a fine choice. I think his problem is more about maybe more about core battalions. And he's a hero on a Magmadroth. He doesn't fit into slot 2 or 3 in Warlord. He takes up your big slot in your battle regiment. He doesn't fit in Hunters. He doesn't become battle line. He hasn't got a good fighting attack. You're losing those 5 good attacks I've just talked about, which could occasionally be good against a monster. He does have a good prayer, though. He's got a +1 to wound prayer coach. So that's pretty good. And you can get it rerollable or a really big range. And in full Magmadroth lists, you could maybe have him as the general. And there's a command trait which allows you to use the same rune twice, Ergol rune. So I think that is really, really good. But, we talk about the rune father on Magmadroth and combos on what things do. So this guy, let's talk dream situation that isn't a dream. You just tailor it every game if you want. Very little your opponent can do about it. Is his Blood of the Berserker allows him to fight twice once a game. And it allows you to fight, you activate it after he's fought once. So near full information about the combat phase when you choose to activate it. Axe of Grimwrath gives you +1 rend and +1 damage to one of your weapons. So it makes his axe 4 attacks, 3s, rend 2, 4 damage. And you can fight twice. So, and it's got 3-inch reach.
And then you've also got Lords of the Lodge that gives you the +1 attack characteristic bubble once per game. Because I remember when I was doing the review and I was looking at the Auric Rune Smiter on Magmadroth, I thought it was quite attractive. And I remember being able to reactivate the rune. And there's a couple of cool things, having a prayer, having a mobile curse. There's some really cool things. And for a moment, I thought, I wonder if there's a Magmadroth battalion. No,
it was weird that wasn't it?
Battalion. Yeah. I thought you might get one.
Because it was such a push theme, and they pushed it in the community articles and everything. I was quite surprised as well, but look, that guy it's hard to not take that command trait and not take that axe and that whole combo, because the things that this guy has killed for me is unbelievable. He just absolutely butchers. When we blow the bonuses, and we say that the dream situation against most opponents, you've done the +1 attack on him. So he's got 5 attacks that are, with +1 to hit, because, you fought a monster, you've gone all out attack, 2s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 4, and you're in the rend rune, and you've used the extra thing, 4 damage and attack. And then down below, he's got 7 attacks, which are 2s, 3s, rend 3, 2 damage. Then another 4 attacks that are 3s, 2s, rend 4, D3 damage, and he does that twice. Like, the guy is an absolute murderer, and there's not much in the game that can fight like him. And the distance he moves is incredible, right? He moves, he charges, he piles, he's got 3-inch reach, then he activates again. Yeah, he's charged that turn, so he piles again, 3 more inches reach, and the stuff he's killed and caught people out with, and just blew a game open. He is incredibly powerful. So yeah, big part of the list, super strong. The Rune Master.
I did play against this once, but I'll be honest, I charged Morathi into it. So I didn't actually see the combat power.
She just kills him. Yeah, Morathi's really good against these. It's tough against Morathi. Yeah, I played one game and he got charged by some Maggot Lord and he just killed the Maggot Lord. He got charged by Kragnos and just killed Kragnos because, he didn't roll. He rolled a 7, and he's tough because Cold Hearted Ancient is -1 damage in combat. And you really want to get the -1 to wound prayer on him from the Rune Master. So he's not soft.
That's what surprised me, how durable and how much effort it took me to use, Mind Razor Witch Elves with 3 attacks each, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. I had to throw the house at these things, and I only just killed it. And then when I killed it, you had the splashback mortal. So I was surprised just how much I had to throw. And if I was playing my Gits, for example, if I ran my Gits into it, good Lord, how much effort it would take for my Gits to pull down the Rune Father or the Rune Son on Magmadroth.
Yeah, and he's not, and that's a good thing about the hordes, that there's so many attacks. Like, this axe is, 5 attacks, 4s, rend 4, but it's not, it's 5, it's 9, it's 16 attack dice that are doing multiple damage. So you go through hordes as well, right? And he hits, if I take the turn, I fight with him once, I kill whatever I fight again, I kill something else, and then it's your turn, and now I've got all out defense, I've got Finest Hour on him, and he's -1 to wound, and he's -1 damage, and I all out defense him, and you're not taking him off with 1 attack, he's swinging again, and he trades up for his points, really well.
Incredible value for 360 points. Incredible. Really. It would take me way more points to take him down than 360.
Yeah. At 18 wounds, just so good.
With the +2 wounds in Lofnir as well, it's just
exactly
crazy. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, that's all. I'll talk about Rune Father all day, man. I love him. The Rune Master he knows all prayers is to your answer of which one to take. He knows all of them out the book. So he's awesome, 125 points, knows every prayer. So I've got access to them, which gives me the wound one and most commonly the run and charge on Volkites. If I want to use that, I like, we talk about just screening with Volkites. When I'm using them aggressively screening, so obviously these Magmadroths can push up the board quite a lot. I like to move Volkites with them and charge, and then like do a line so they protect flanks of Magmadroths, or they pile in after the Magmadroth has fought and creates a screen in the front. So it's good in those situations. And I think the other one, you can make a Magmadroth act as full profile all turn.
Fighting at the top bracket, the Wrath of the Voltrix.
So, I think more than like the fighting part, because they don't really drop off, getting your shooting back to 2s to hit, getting your movement back to 12, and you've got like a bit of a done-in Magmadroth who's maybe, just recovering from a combat, and wants to get back into the fight, and do something, it can be pretty good. So
your Magmadroths don't really degrade that well.
No.
Like really, all you're doing is losing your claw attacks going down from top bracket 6 to 3 at the worst bracket. And then the roaring fire stream gets reduced from a 2 up down to a 5 at worst. So it's a good way to like avoid metamorphosis if you don't want to, or no, not metamorphosis. Is it predator and prey or whatever the command ability that allows you to fight? If your command ability poor, or you don't have, you didn't generate the free one, that's another option to be able to tap into that. But
most of the time it's some Magmadroth that's at the back of the board and wants to get back in the fight, because the Rune Master's at the back of the board. He's behind the pizza oven, cooking up a storm, isn't he? So he's usually hanging around the back.
It's Prayer of Ash that grinds my gears, because I run Fire Phoenix, so Frost Phoenixes in cities, so how powerful the -1/2 wound bubble is. It's just well, no, it's not a bubble in this case. You pick a unit of yours, and it's -1. So again, you're guaranteed. There's not a lot of pluses of wound in the game. So Prayer of Ash is my all-time favorite.
You want him, you put him down. He's by the furnace, and then hopefully you try and find Mystical. You get him next to Mystical as well as by the furnace, so it's 2s, and you make sure you get that prayer off. He's good, and he gives you +1 command point when he's next to your general. So you try and manage that as long as you can. Obviously, it's very easy in deployment for the first turn, and you can do your best to maybe keep it another turn, but that quickly falls off. But it's nice early on, have that extra command point, and you blow Warlord then at some point to pick up the slack as well. So Battlesmith, I like to give 18 wound monsters, 5+ ward, and it's easier than you think to keep him in range. It's very, very rare I don't auto run him 6 on the first turn up the board, right into the middle, and make sure he's got that bubble out, protecting the Magmadroths in the fights. You get most of the time I get that right. Sometimes I let it slip, but he's good.
And you said, remind me, once per game you can make that a 5, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a 6 always, then you make it a 5. And he's got the 4+ rally that they like to give in armies now. So again, rally and Volkites is it's good. So I'm obviously always keeping an eye out. Can I, they're not very good in combat, so keeping them out of 3, making sure the leader's at the back out of range, so I can remove the whole unit and then get the rally off on them on a 4+. Always keeping an eye out for that. So it's decent. It was working on Free Guild Guard as well at a few points as well, before it got changed. So
obviously, it has been FAQ'd now that it's Fyreslayer only.
And rightly so, right?
Imagine like doing it on dragons or Fulminators, or like no,
just a clear little mistake by them, unfortunately. So, but it didn't impact anything ever that I heard of. So, then the core of the army, right? The Rune Sons on Magmadroths, 3 battle line units here. All in Hunters of the Heartland, always getting the bonuses off, never getting roared. So absolutely brilliant. I've just spread out the buffs on them. One's got the 3+ ward, one's got the stomp, better stomp, and one is always shoots 5 shots. And all 3 of them, that really like makes them unique. And definitely in the strategies in the game and deployments and where I'm placing them, which one's which is big for me. Like your opponent might not think so. It's like, oh wow, that one's there. But when it's your army and everything that's going on, like knowing I've got the 5-shot one near some hero, or something, and knowing I've got the stomp one behind my unit of guys, or knowing I can go aggressive with the stomp one against on a flank, or I can go aggressive with the unbreakable one on a flank because it can't die, all that, really key. And they're just super good value unit, 320 points, 18 wounds, 14 attack. The way I sum it up, like they got 14 attacks that are basically on average 3s, Rem 1, 2 damage. So it's a lot of dice. Loads of runes apply to them, extra attacks, 3 profiles. The shooting attack, fantastic, right? Like 10 shots, 2s, 3s, Rem 1. If you haven't shot for a turn, it's Rem 3, which is super common. Turn 1, you probably haven't shot them. So really good for like clearing screens or powering off a big unit of like skinks or something like that. So yeah, they're great. Like, and free guild guard, fill it out because I had points left over and nothing to spend it on. So 10 more men for me, I think is brilliant. You know, their screen.
Outside of battle lines, so they're not going to give up broken ranks. I do want to call out on the Rune Sun on Magma. I do love the vying for glory as well, given how much monsters are on the table at the moment. Getting the mortal wounds equal to the damage profile if you roll a 6 to hit. Is it on a hit? Yeah, unmodified 6 to hit. So
yeah,
with the amount of attacks, especially like, you know, an ancestral war axe,
it's on the axe. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah,
like you could get a couple of mortal wounds cheeky there. Add, you know, +1 attack if you happen to pull that off.
They could have it could have +1 attack and another +1. They could have 7 each.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's good. It's good. Free guild guard will give up my battle line. You unfortunately you get the trait now, but that plays back into my favor as well, and that's why I've got hold the line. So I have all the free guild guard, all the Magmadroths, all the Volkites. You have to kill all of that to get hold the line off me. So it's that's why I've hold the line as well. So all that stuff, it's great.
Do you need the bodies? Like, do you need, because they come like 1 wound a piece? They're you know, you get 10 models. Do you need that, or like could you screen with something else like, I don't know, Aether Wings or something a bit faster? Or would you go?
I think you need them. They got a 4 up save. Like they can go to 3 up save, stick them in cover on an objective. They're on a 2 up save if I pop it, you know. Before obviously then there's all the negatives. I know they can't stack to a 3 because it's +1 off the shield.
You're ignoring range. Yeah,
exactly
we all know that.
It's really easy to get to like a 3+ save with them, and yeah, they give up. They might give up the battle line 1, but like, and I give it up easy, but I'm probably giving that up anyway. Like something in my army has to die. It's all battle line. so what? You know, I like that they move fast. You know, they've got a movement of 5 and they've got +1 to the run. So they allow me to, when you summon the missions, the Fyreslayer troops can't quite get to them without rolling a 3+, or and I can't risk failing that on a flank. You know, when you want to get onto the objective to make sure I've got it. But I also want to auto run my Battlesmith up the board, get him in range. You know, I want to like react and plug a gap with him. You know, where I'm sending the Magmadroths, he might need to slide around with them. So it's great that I know that they can get to an objective, or I can deploy them like maybe on like Tectonic, and I can deploy them in a position where they can get to either of the 2, and I don't have to like telegraph where I'm going to go. I can go like, oh, actually, I'm just going to sling them that way. I'm going to sling them that way now. So I like them. I think they're good. So they can be a bit of a liability, you know, but they get the game going. That's a big thing I say all the time. I can just go, right, you know what? I'm going to run those free guild guard 6. They're going to overstand on that objective. They're going to go 12 inches or whatever it is, and they'll be right over there. They're on it. I've got max points. You'll go. Kill them. So
there's a lot of versatility in them. They could be a great unit that protects you screening. I think one thing that I noticed when I've played against Fyreslayers, both old book and new book, is you always want to be moving forward. And you know, especially this book where you want to be more in combat. I found my last game, my opponent was, you know, really challenging. Like, do I sit on an objective, especially a backfield objective, one that is keeping you out of combat, or do I move forward? And because I had 2 units of Canary, I could deep strike those and steal those really quickly. So it becomes a conundrum. But when you've got free guild guard or something that's cheap that can hold an objective, it allows the rest of your army to move forward. Or if you've got things that are coming in from reserve or deep strike, you can use that to, again, protect the back, protect your pizza oven while everything else moves forward. So there's a lot of versatility. And the fact that their shields give them a native +1, it means you don't have to spend, you know, all that defense on them. Or if you do, it's because you're reducing Ren 2.
I like it. I like it. And yeah, and there was a point I could rally them, right? So on a 4, which was okay. They're good. Just sit on one side of my deployment and guard one flank from deep striking. Then that Magmadroth with the Rune can be on the other end. And it allows me to still have the core of my army together in the bubble. You know, I can still keep it all. I'm not having to like split units off to the side and impact my main plan so much. So, and they can get back in the fight, right? They can run and, you know, make a difference or hide at the back for hold the line. So
yeah, no, and look, there's a lot of customization you can do with this, like, you know, your allies, cities, and Caradron and Stormcast. So, you know, I have seen Fyreslayers lists at the moment playing with 2 Stormdrake Guard or 2 Fulminators being brought in as allies. You could, you know, if you're struggling to get some of those battle, you know, objectives where you need to be in your opponent's territory, get a unit of Shadow Warriors, get something that comes in natively from reserve. There's a lot of great options.
yeah, I like dragons in Fyreslayers as well. 2 of them, I've painted them and converted them and put Fyreslayers on the back, and I like it. Yeah, they're a really good unit for 340 points. So yeah,
really good. I am conscious of time, and I haven't had dinner yet, but I want to ask just a couple of burning questions before we wrap that up. What's the key to success? If I'm going to run Fyreslayers and I want to do well, maybe I'm kind of middling at the moment, getting 2 wins, 3 wins, and I want to be a champion like you. I want to win the world's tournament like Ritchie. What's the key to my success? Any tips that you'd share?
You got to know your opponent's like units really well and know which way to maximize your damage through all the buffs we've talked about throughout the game. So you need to, like, for me, you know, an example might be, I don't mind leaving someone on a 6+ save, but I don't want them on a 5. You know, is it worth how much I push the rend? You know, do I need to be a +1 damage? Do I not? How am I gonna keep the units alive and response as well? You know, how I'm gonna toggle those 2 buffs. That's what you've got to know, all that inside and out. Toggling your wounds, toggling your heroic actions, toggling your ward saves, and which units you've got are best suited to do that. Maximize your monster points because you've got them all there to get. So make sure you're getting them at some point in the game when using the monster side of things. Yeah, and then I guess the other stuff just applies, you know, to Fyreslayers in full. That's the big difference maker for me. And you got to get your deployment right, so you put yourself in the best position to get around the board. You've got to plan ahead with your army. You've got to know the ranges of where you're going to get these slow moving units into positions. You know, you can't react, can you? You know, in some ways you have to. The Magmadroths do allow you some reaction time, but you're still trying to keep them in aura range and stuff. For me, so they would be my biggest things.
Speaking of deployment, are you more of a castle? Do you spread out across the board? Obviously, opponent and battle plan aside, do you find on average you have some deployment tips for me?
It's a castle. Ultimately, really, I think against most armies, it's going to be a castle. Your biggest ones is can your opponent do anything to you turn 1? And making sure your Magmadroths are not blocked in because of that. You know, you can castle too much and not be able to get your Magmadroths out into the fight. They're quite big bases. You need to. I wish you'd asked me to do a little drawing to do
That's
this.
all right, but
I should have
they don't fly
done
as
this
well.
to people. But like, I would have shown better. But like, you know, if you've got a screen, you need to be able to make sure your screen can move out the way, and they can get out. So,
all right, I put your Twitter up as well because I want people to go follow you on Twitter, and I'm sure at some stage you might draw or even show some old photos from games, or even if you want to do a diagram, I'm sure people would appreciate to see, because I think one of the challenges is that you don't fly. So if you box yourself into bad deployment with terrain, or if you don't maneuver, even like when you're trying to get into combat, if you rush something into combat too soon and then you make it almost impossible for the other kind of Magmadroth to get in because the base won't get in within half, you'll mess up your plan entirely.
I've made mistakes, and I made mistakes at World, and it could have cost me. But yeah, you've got to. That's my biggest tip is, like, yes, you're going to set up some screen, but you can't be so cautious. You know, you can. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. You can the Magmadroths have, like, I highlighted the slightly different roles on them. You know, you could put the 3+ ward one aggressively on the line, so it's free. It can get out, it can get up the board. It's giving your opponent things to think about. The measuring ranges from it, you know, the measuring range 12, the measuring range 14, the measuring range 14 with +2 to charge. So you can present those sets, and they can't kill it, right? You just pop your 3 at ward, you know, or you get the stomp one in a position where it can stomp over your line, and they've got to deal with D3+3 mortals when they come in. So yeah, it's you know, about that's the biggest part. You know, you are going to screen, you are going to probably want to protect your guys most of the time, but you've got to be able to make sure they can get out across the battlefield well. But be careful where you put your fairness oven, that it doesn't cock everything up for you as well. So,
do you play yours at the back? Like, do you actually put your pizza oven
pretty,
at the back just to smash it for the ward? Are you going for the increased chanting, or is there something else that
increased chanting for most of the game. Pretty far back. The things I'm just wary. I'm just making sure Magmadroth bases can fit through the gap. So, you know, I wouldn't put it on the line and then I couldn't get across the front of it, because there was we play a lot of impassable in my store and my events, and it's become a bit more of a trend. So it can be quite an impact if you can't get round. And the same, you don't make sure that you can get past each side of it when you put in the deployment. Yeah, most of the game I'm using it to get +1 to my prayer roll, to cast Prayer of Ash on a 3+. And then at some point I blow it up when my Magmadroths are going to run off and do wild things, or my Battlesmith is dead. So
yeah.
No,
I dig it. I absolutely dig it. Last question, and then I'll let you go to work and I'll go have some dinner. Again, a great conversation that I could continue asking lots of questions, but you talked Worlds. So Worlds had some of the best players from around the world, from lots of countries, and you know your games against some of the great. I think you played France, and you played a whole bunch of
amazing
Aussie.
Yeah.
You played some really good talent, right? No, Jonathan, I'm not asking about Mega Gargants. The last thing I want to ask you about is, what did you learn from Worlds? And do you have any future considerations now that we have obviously Daughters and Nighthawk coming into the picture that were not banned, but were on old books for Worlds? We know Skaven and Sylvaneth are coming, and we know other things are coming down the line. What have you learnt? 2, would you change, or you got some considerations that maybe us as a community can think about as Fyreslayers?
It was a lot harder against prepared players. You know, the lists are public. They will know them for a while. I played the list before Worlds as well, and I had success with the list before Worlds as well. Nearly winning the Hampshire GT, winning I can't remember what it's called. Winning the Hobby Rooms events, midweek events and stuff, and winning 5. So prepared players, it did make a difference. You know, I did not catch people out anywhere near as much in that. So a lot of the success, I worry, maybe it is just a combat army with some monsters in the end, and yes, you've got to be efficient managing all these things I talked about. So that was my biggest takeaway from it. Do I need the men? What I said earlier, do I need the men? Was I scared? Was I not wanting to lose? Was I, falling back on crutches, of having screens and things like that, valuing myself as a player maybe, or maybe just like how these, like a Warhammer army, what a Warhammer army looks like. Should I have just took all Magmadroths? I would maybe thinking about, am I taking all Magas? It's a lot less interesting to play. I haven't got any of the interactions. I lose a lot of stuff, but maybe they're just so efficient.
I will say I'm pretty sure, first 6 months of Age of Sigmar, I would probably say all the Magmadroths. The pendulum is starting to swing, where armies like Ironjaws and other factions that are starting to deep strike, and has reminded us the importance of screens and bodies. So I don't think for a second you should all be going in and buying all the Magmadroths in the world. I still think there are places for Volkites and Hearthguard and where your tolerance level is. And maybe the next General's Handbook is going to, validate your decision even more. But if you also want to run 6,
phase where you don't buy loads of armies now, right? You have to be careful, about spamming 6 monsters, and Kronspine as well. I don't know how Magmadroths deal with him. So he's just a nightmare. You're just killing monsters. He's leveling all the time. We can't retreat. We can't take it off. It's hard. So yeah, that might change things a lot as well. Worlds was an excellent event. It was very good to play your home team twice. I think I'm sure you have lots of Australian fans, and I think for me, I tweeted it and I said it to the guys at the time. It makes the event when people like you guys come, right? Like for me, whatever, £100 flight. I drive half a mile down the road, right? The commitment from you guys to come over to this event and make it like a world's event, not just some European thing. Like it's incredible. Like it would, for me, it would certainly wouldn't have been good without. And your team done really well, like really well. And I said this to the guys, they're like, "Oh, we finished wherever, and we were third going into the last round." Worlds played one too many rounds for me. That was the event. You finished where you finished, but at the end of round 5, which is the appropriate amount of rounds, you guys were third place. Like, and I think the Australian team done brilliant. Like, that trip should be well worth it. Like, it was so good.
No, I think they should be all proud. And I think talking to even other teams outside of Australia, I've been talking to, and I think a lot of people have lessons learned. And it's like, how do I now? And I think this is true for everyone, folks. Either outside of Worlds, play your army, practice, prepare, learn and get better for the next one. And you ask Ritchie, like, what's the best way to learn? Ask your opponent, what could I have done differently? Get some feedback, and things like tournaments allow you to apply feedback immediately. So I appreciate the kind words. I'm sure Australia and all the other players would appreciate. But it
was amazing. We were underprepared for Worlds. We are lucky that we play like our tournaments. You guys are like super inventive. You play loads of cool things. We'll spam dragons every week, right? We'll spam Nurgle. It's the UK, right? And we all play loads, and we get loads of opportunity to play. If without that, we can't do that and just ride it next year. The other teams preps were like another level to us, and it was really, really, really difficult. So
to come back to Fyreslayers and kind of wrap it up, I think you mentioned preparedness, and I think I mentioned it right at the start. Actually, there's not a lot of Fyreslayers players out there in the game, which is probably why so many people have appreciated your insights. So again, thank you for everyone who listened to the live stream or will watch it on replay. But the other part as well is your opponent is probably not going to have experience, and they probably play Fires. I reckon I play Fyreslayers on average once, twice a year.
Yeah.
Unless I go out and hunt the game. So for most people, they're going to be unprepared. They're not thinking about this as a strategy. They're not thinking about how do I handle the Magmadroths and all these different things. So obviously don't gotcha moments, but I think you will find if you know your army. Yeah, if you know your army really well, you're gonna make your opponent make really tough decisions.
Yeah, it's not got you. Like I said, it's on the war scroll right in front of them. They'll be like, "Oh wait, there's 18 wounds," and you're like. And you hit with it, and they're like, "Wow, they really hit hard." And you're like, "Yeah, they do, yeah." So it's good.
Ritchie, you've got a YouTube channel, so Just Play. You've got a store as well. So if you are in England, go check out Just Play. You had a podcast that I'm sure you and Ian are going to come back and bring the band back together and get the podcast. I think it's been almost 12 months. I think September was the last one.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to do the streams again. I definitely wasn't in a place for it at one point, but I feel it now, and I've really enjoyed coming on here, Coach. So thank you for having me on and maybe reinvigorating me a little bit to get back out and share my thoughts about Age of Sigmar a little bit more than I have in the past while. So it's been really good. Thank you.
I hope to see Ian back. I hope to see James Tinsdale on the channel. I want to see, Tom and, the whole crew. But do you want to give any shout outs and then we'll wrap this up?
No, honestly, no. Coach, brilliant. Thank you. Got a great show here. And I've already said what I wanted to say against the Australian guys. I was so good to have them all over for Worlds. And yeah, do check us out. JustPlayGames.uk. If you want to buy anything in the UK, we'll sort it out. Great service. Everything you need.
Go check out Just Play. Both subscribe to their YouTube channel. Go hit them up on Twitter. I'll put your Twitter handle back on again. You'll share some awesome photos of your army. And the podcast will come back, and go buy from UK. Go buy from them. There's no affiliate link from me. I'm not getting any kickbacks. I just appreciate what Ritchie and Ian and what the general Just Play. They've got a very good community and also a very good focus on competitive, which I really appreciate. So thank you so much, Ritchie.
Yeah,
we're going to bring this home. You go to work. I'm going to go have some dinner. And thank you, everyone who joined the live stream. It's always greatly appreciated.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for sticking around until the end. I hope you found that video interesting and you walked away with a few new ideas. If you did, I would appreciate it if you hit like on the video, as well as left me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. The conversation will continue over on Discord, so links down below in the episode description if you want to join the Discord and continue the Age of Sigmar conversation. I want to give a massive shout out as well to these absolute bloody legends, these champions who have continued to support me through Patreon or YouTube members. That is going directly into supporting the maintenance and the growth of this channel. So thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. And until next time, roll more sixes.